Welcome back to EPM.org. Today we are going to continue our multi-week Bible study titled Exploring God's Word, which will take us from the beginning of the Old Testament clear to the end of the New Testament. EPM.org also offers a weekly one-on-one Exploring God's Word Bible study, as well as we also offer the very same in a group setting, which can be scheduled by contacting me through this very page. Today, Lesson 18, The Divided Kingdom. In 1 Kings chapter 11, verses 42 through 43, keep reading through 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 1 through 7. So Solomon has died, and Rehoboam ascends to the throne of Israel. This is significant because what happens next will give us 17 books of prophecy. Jeroboam was a man who was elevated under Solomon, but was in exile in Egypt because of his previous ambitions to split the kingdom. Remember, the nature of the king will be that he will tend to tax you to the point that you can barely survive. That is exactly where the nation is when Jeroboam takes the throne. The people in verse 4 ask for mercy from heavy tax load that Solomon had put on the people under him. Jeroboam seeks counsel from his advisors. The old counsel saying, if you serve the people will serve you. The first key concept today in Lesson 18 is, servant leaders are the best leaders. If you lead others the way you wish to be led, you will be loved. You will be a loved leader. People want someone who tries to put themselves in their shoes to help them. The world needs more true servant leaders. In 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 8 through 16, instead of listening to the wise counsel of the elders, instead counseled with the young, political power-hungry crowd. They said, don't give in to the request of the people. And they talked him into being a mean and vicious, power-hungry king. As a result, there is a civil war, and Israel becomes a divided nation. 10 tribes follow Jeroboam and become the nation of Israel to the north, and 2 tribes follow after Rehoboam and become Judah to the south. Israel will have 19 wicked kings, and in 721 BC will go into captivity to Assyria and cease to be. But Judah will have 17 kings and 1 wicked queen, and ultimately end up in captivity to the Babylonians 115 years later in 606 BC. During the time of the king's rule, God would raise up prophets to preach to these kings. Turn to first chapter of the book of Isaiah, chapter 1, verse 1. And notice the names of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahijah, and Hezekiah. Isaiah was the preacher of 4 different kings in Judah. Hezekiah was the king under which Judah was a great revival. Turn to Jeremiah 1, verse 1 through 3. Jeremiah's prophecy until Judah is taken into Babylonian captivity. Daniel and Ezekiel will prophesy during the captivity. Is Israel to the north? All the kings are wicked. It is during these dark times that Israel's history with God gives many of his most powerful prophecies. For example, if you turn to Isaiah chapter 7 verse 14. 700 years before Jesus is ever born, virgin birth is foretold. We know this child will be called the Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace. In Isaiah chapter 9 verse 6. In 606 BC, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of the Babylonians, takes Judah into captivity. In today's lesson 18, key concept review. Servant leaders are the best leaders. Until next time, God bless.